understandable English podcast.
Learn English the easy way.
So I have a confession to make, and it is a little bit embarrassing. But since we tell each other everything on the Understandable English podcast, I am just going to say it.
I feel like I should be worried, but please go ahead.
Next week is Canada Day, and I am stressing out about it. I have been stressing out about it for a week.
You are stressed about a holiday that is mostly about eating hot dogs in a park?
Yes. Because I feel like there are rules. I feel like there is this secret manual for how to celebrate Canada Day, and nobody gave me a copy. I am not originally from here, and every time a national holiday comes around, I get this intense feeling that I am going to do it wrong.
What do you mean by doing it wrong? It is a public holiday. You get the day off. You relax. That is the only rule.
But it feels bigger than that. In a lot of countries, national holidays are very serious. There are massive military parades, everyone wears the flag. You have to sing the national anthem perfectly. And if you do not know the exact history of the country, people look at you like you do not belong. I always feel a little out of place on national holidays because I think, well, I was not born here, so maybe this party is not for me.
I think that is a really common feeling. It can be very intimidating to celebrate a country when you feel like a guest in it.
Exactly. I was actually reading a forum online yesterday, and I found this post from a guy who just moved to Canada a few years ago. He was saying the exact same thing. He wrote that his friends invited him to a Canada Day barbecue, and he was terrified. He was worried they would expect him to be this perfect patriot. He thought he had to pretend to love hockey, drink a specific type of beer, and basically act like he had lived here for 50 years. He was so anxious about trying to blend in that he almost did not go.
That makes me so sad, because that is the exact opposite of what Canada Day usually is.
Really? Because in my head, I am preparing for an exam. I am trying to figure out all the historical facts. I was reading Wikipedia last night trying to memorize dates.
You definitely do not need to do that. If you stopped an average person on the street and asked them for specific historical dates, they would probably just stare at you and offer you a donut.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. But seriously, how did it start? Most countries have a big dramatic story. A revolution, a war, someone riding a horse with a sword. What is the big dramatic story of Canada?
The big dramatic story of Canada is basically a bunch of men sitting in a room in 1867, arguing about railroads and taxes, and eventually deciding to work together.
Wait, that is it? No explosions? No dramatic battles for freedom?
No. It was called Confederation. Before 1867, Canada was just a group of separate British colonies. They were all struggling with their own problems. They realized that if they joined together, they could trade more easily, build a railway across the country, and protect themselves better. So they had a series of conferences. They talked, they debated, they compromised, and they signed an agreement.
They just talked it out?
Basically. It was a political process. Now, I do not want to say it was perfect. There were a lot of people, especially Indigenous peoples, who were left out of those conversations entirely, which is a history we are still trying to repair today. But the actual creation of the country was not born out of a violent revolution. It was born out of negotiation.
That is incredibly practical, and honestly a little bit boring. But I kind of love it. It feels very calm.
It is calm. And I think that history of compromise really shapes how we celebrate today. Because Canada was formed by different regions with different languages, English and French, agreeing to exist together, the idea of compromise is built into the foundation of the country.
So there is no pressure to have a loud, aggressive kind of patriotism?
Not usually. Of course, you will see people wearing red and white, and there are flags, but it is usually a very relaxed kind of pride. We do not generally have huge military parades. We just have local parades with fire trucks, community groups, and children riding bicycles with ribbons tied to them.
That sounds so much less stressful than what I was imagining. But what about the cultural part? The guy on the forum was so worried he had to change who he was. He was afraid he had to give up his own culture to be accepted.
That brings up one of my favorite things about this country. In a lot of places, the goal for immigrants is integration through assimilation. They use the idea of a melting pot.
Right, a melting pot, where everyone jumps into the pot and all the cultures melt together into one single thing. You lose your original shape and you just become the new nationality.
Exactly. But in Canada, we officially use a different idea. We call it the Cultural Mosaic.
A mosaic? Like the art made of little colored glass tiles?
Yes. Or if you want a simpler metaphor, think of a salad.
I always want a simpler metaphor, especially if it involves food.
In a salad, you have tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, and onions. They are all mixed together in the same bowl. But the tomato does not stop being a tomato. The cucumber does not turn into lettuce. They all keep their own unique flavor, their own color, and their own texture. But together, they make a great salad.
I love that. So you are saying I can be a tomato.
You can absolutely be a tomato, Bryan.
That is actually a huge relief. Because I want to be part of the community, but I also want to hold on to the things that make me who I am. I want to hold on to the food from my childhood, the language my grandmother speaks, the music I grew up with.
And you are supposed to. That is the whole point of the mosaic. We do not want you to forget where you came from. We want you to bring it here and share it with us. The idea is that you can be completely 100% proud of your heritage and still be 100% Canadian. Those two things are not enemies.
That completely changes how I view the holiday. So if I go to a Canada Day event, I do not have to pretend to be someone else. I can just show up as myself.
Yes. In fact, if you go to a major city like Toronto or Vancouver on Canada Day, you will see exactly that. You will see people wearing traditional clothing from all over the world, waving tiny Canadian flags. You will smell barbecue, but you will also smell samosas, jerk chicken, pierogies, and pho. It is a celebration of the fact that we all ended up here together.
That sounds amazing. But tell me, how do you personally celebrate? Because you grew up here. You know all the classic traditions. If I want to experience a truly classic, everyday Canadian Canada Day, what does it look like?
Well, the most classic way to celebrate is actually to leave the city.
Wait, you celebrate the country by running away from the people?
Kind of. A very traditional way to spend the long weekend is to go to a cottage.
A cottage? I hear this word all the time. People always say they are going to the cottage. It sounds so mysterious. What actually happens there?
Nothing. That is the beauty of it. Let me paint a picture for you. A few years ago, I went to a friend's cottage a few hours north of the city for the Canada Day long weekend.
Okay, I am closing my eyes. Tell me everything. I want the full experience.
First of all, the drive. You pack the car full of groceries on Friday afternoon and you drive north. After an hour, the highway gets smaller. After 2 hours, you are driving through thick green pine trees. The air starts to smell different. It smells like dirt and pine needles and fresh water.
I can smell it. It sounds incredibly peaceful.
It is, until you open the car door and the mosquitoes attack you.
Oh, right. Nature.
Yes, nature. But you put on some bug spray and you walk down to the cottage. A cottage is usually just a simple wooden house near a lake. It is not fancy. The furniture is usually old, mismatched stuff from the 1980s. There is no internet. The floor creaks when you walk.
I love places like that. They feel lived in.
Exactly. And the whole weekend is just slow. In the morning, you wake up early because the sun is shining through the trees. You walk out to the wooden dock by the water. The lake is completely flat, like glass. It is so quiet you can hear a fish jump out of the water halfway across the lake.
What do you do all day? Do you have a schedule?
Absolutely not. Having a schedule at a cottage is a crime. You sit in a cheap plastic folding chair. You read a book. You drink coffee out of an old mug. Maybe someone takes a canoe out onto the lake and just paddles slowly along the edge of the water.
That sounds like a dream.
It really is. And for food, it is always a barbecue. You fire up the grill in the afternoon. People are walking around barefoot. Someone is making hot dogs. Someone else is grilling corn on the cob. And because it is Canada, we usually drive down to a little wooden stand by the side of the road to buy poutine.
Oh, poutine, the legendary dish. French fries, cheese curds, and gravy.
Exactly. You sit on the dock eating warm poutine out of a paper box, watching the water. As the sun starts to go down, the air gets a little cool, so you put on a thick sweater. We call it a bunny hug in some parts of the country, or just a hoodie.
A bunny hug? That is the most adorable thing I have ever heard.
It is very cute. So you are wearing your sweater and someone starts a campfire. You sit around the fire roasting marshmallows. You hear the wood popping and cracking. You can hear laughter coming from the other cottages across the dark lake.
It sounds so deeply comforting, like you are completely disconnected from the stress of the real world.
That is exactly what it is. And then, around 10 o'clock at night, the fireworks start. But it is not a massive professional show. It is just families around the lake setting off a few fireworks from their docks. You see the bright colors explode in the sky, and then you see the exact same colors reflected perfectly in the dark water of the lake.
Wow, that is such a strong visual.
It is magic. You sit there smelling the campfire smoke, listening to the insects in the trees, watching the sky light up, and you just feel lucky to be there.
You know, hearing you describe that, it makes me realize why I was so stressed. I was treating the holiday like a performance. I thought I had to prove something to everyone. I thought I had to show that I was a good resident by knowing all the facts and doing everything perfectly.
And what do you think now?
Now, I think the holiday is just an invitation to rest. It is an invitation to eat some good food, look at some trees, and just exist.
That is exactly it. You do not have to perform for anyone.
It really makes you think about what it means to belong somewhere. Because when you move to a new country, you spend the first few years feeling like a guest in a hotel. You are afraid to touch the walls, you are afraid to make a mess, you are just trying not to break the rules.
That makes a lot of sense. You are walking on eggshells.
Yes. But then, gradually you realize that this is not a hotel. It is your house now, too. You are allowed to relax on the sofa. You are allowed to invite people over. You are allowed to add your own pictures to the wall.
I think that is the perfect way to describe the cultural mosaic. We want you to put your pictures on the wall. The house looks better with them.
And the guy on the forum, the one who was terrified to go to the barbecue, I bet if he went, he realized that nobody cared what beer he drank. They probably just handed him a plate of food and told him to sit in a folding chair.
Exactly. Nobody is grading you on your patriotism. The fact that you chose to live here, that you are contributing to the community, that you are sitting with us, that is more than enough.
I feel so much lighter. I really do. I am actually excited for next week now. I think I'm going to buy a ridiculous red and white hat and just go to the park and eat a hot dog.
That is the most authentic way you could possibly celebrate.
Before we wrap things up, I actually noticed that we used a lot of really great natural English phrases today. Some really good B1 and B2 level vocabulary that I think our listeners should know.
That is true. We did use some good ones today.
Let's do a quick review. This is not a formal lesson, guys, just a quick reminder of how we talk in real life. I will bring up the phrase, and Jessica, you can do that thing where you explain it perfectly in simple English.
I can do that. What is the first one?
Early in the conversation, I was talking about the guy on the forum. I said he was terrified of trying to blend in.
Yes, to blend in. This means to look or behave like everyone else around you so that nobody notices you are different. Like an animal using camouflage in the forest. If you go to a formal party wearing jeans, you will not blend in.
Exactly. I used to try to blend in by pretending I knew all the rules of hockey. It was exhausting. Okay, the next one. We were talking about the mosaic, and I said I wanted to hold onto the food from my childhood.
To hold on to something means to keep it and not let it go. It can be physical, like holding onto a handrail, but we often use it for ideas or traditions. You can hold on to your culture, your memories, or your beliefs.
Right. I am definitely holding on to my grandmother's recipes. No one can take those from me. Then I said I was trying to figure out all the historical facts.
To figure out means to solve a problem or to finally understand something after thinking about it. If your computer is broken, you try to figure out how to fix it. If a math problem is hard, you take your time to figure it out.
I am still trying to figure out why poutine is so delicious. It shouldn't make sense, but it does. Next, when we were talking about the cottage, you mentioned that it is a great place to wind down.
Yes, to wind down. This is a great phrasal verb. It means to relax slowly after a period of stress or excitement. You do not just stop instantly, you gradually become calmer. After a long week of work, you might wind down by reading a book or taking a warm bath.
Or staring at a lake from a wooden chair. And then, early on, I mentioned that I usually feel a little out of place on national holidays.
Feeling out of place means feeling like you do not belong in a certain situation, like you are the wrong person in the wrong room. If you go to a teenager's music concert and you are 50 years old, you might feel a little out of place.
I feel out of place at the gym when everyone else is lifting heavy weights, and I am just standing there looking at my phone. And finally, just a minute ago, I said, before we wrap up.
To wrap up means to finish something or bring it to an end. We use it for meetings, projects, or conversations. When a movie director finishes filming for the day, they say, "That is a wrap."
Perfect. So we are going to wrap up this episode right now. If any of you listening have ever felt out of place in a new country, or if you have a special way you celebrate where you live, tell us in the comments. We read all of them, and if this conversation sounded familiar to you, leave a like on the video. It really helps you practice your English, and it helps our channel grow.
We always love hearing your stories. It is the best part of doing this podcast.
It really is. Thank you for making me feel better about Canada Day, Jessica. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome, Bryan. Just remember to bring bug spray to the park.
I definitely will. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
So yesterday I tried to blend in at a fancy restaurant, but I couldn't figure out which fork to use, so I just decided to hold onto my spoon the whole time. And while everyone else was starting to wind down with their expensive wine, I felt so out of place that I asked the waiter to wrap up my steak in a napkin so I could leave.
You are never allowed to go out in public with me again.